So, my big question is, what kind of state are we going to be in when this is all over? Like, are we going straight towards another Great Depression here? I mean, not to just kind of spout gloom and doom, but it don't look good.
I know what you mean.
Things do not look good. And personally, you know this because we come from the town that's next to the ugliest project in the world, the Casa Fortune. I mean, we're already like, we're piss poor as it is, right? We haven't got pot piss in this province. Imagine what happens now after this. So, in terms of long-term ramifications, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking? Like, do you think this is something we're going to easily bounce back from, or do you think that this is going to have long-term ramifications?
I guess that's where my positivity really comes into play.
Okay.
Because I don't necessarily think we should bounce back. I think we should scrap the whole thing we got in place and start from scratch.
Oh, now we're talking. Okay, let me have another swig of tea. Keep going. I'm listening.
Yeah. I don't know, like for a long time, I don't know if you heard me mention this on the other episode of the podcast you listened to.
Right.
But I believe, and I believe we have sufficient reason to believe that we can take care of everyone in the world without this whole monetary system in general. I don't think we're actually in a state of scarcity. I don't think there's actually a lack of resources. There's a lack of money, but that's because people want it to be that way. Now, if we made it our priority, like every government in the world made it their priority to actually start from scratch, meaning feed and clothe and shelter everybody on the earth, I know we could do it. Like, we're not lacking in food. We're not lacking in energy sources. There are industries in place keeping us from doing that because they want to have control and power and whatnot, and that's what's created the situation we're in. And I'm not necessarily saying that somebody deliberately made it that way. I'm saying we evolved from a place where we actually were in scarcity. But then we were so innovative that we came up with all these new ways to take care of each other. But those new ways have been suppressed for years. Like, just like, think of like the electric car or something like that. They figured out how to make an electric car many, many years ago.
Yeah, in the 80s, I believe, wasn't it? There's a whole documentary on who killed the electric car.
Exactly, right? And big industry was like, nope, we can't have that because where's our oil? Where are we going to get our oil profits, essentially? And I think that kind of mentality spans throughout our entire society. So if we were to step away from that and, governments actually became humanitarian rather than what they are now.
Capitalistic.
Capitalistic, then I think we could actually take care of everyone in the world. And then I don't really care about where it goes from there. As long as everyone's fed and clothed and sheltered, whatever happens after that is going to be a hell of a lot better than what we got right now.
Okay.
Because right now there's upwards of 50,000 people dying every day from malnutrition, which is unnecessary. And there's all kinds of people dying from disease that they don't need to have because there's poison in our food, there's poison in our water, and nobody is actually told about how to take care of themselves. They're not educated on how to actually make themselves healthy. They're educated on how to make themselves happy, but their version of happy is more so distracted. So, get drunk, eat shitty food, have a good time, that kind of thing, which kind of just leads to more and more disease, which leads to more and more stress on the healthcare system, which leads to more and more money going away to different things that we don't actually need to be putting our money into. So, and when I think about the system in general, a lot of people listen to me and probably call me like a communist or a socialist or something like that,
or an optimist.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, Mike, I agree with I agree with your philosophy. So, like, there's no small trouble to tell I'm a big Star Trek fan.
Exactly,
right? I wouldn't have a tattoo on my arm if I was not. However, the main problem I always had with Star Trek was the idea that at some point in time, and like, it's a beautiful philosophy to have, but I can't see it, that at some point in time, people are going to be so motivated by wanting to contribute and bettering themselves as opposed to collection.
Right.
And as opposed to consumption. And as opposed, quite frankly, to greed.
Right. But where do you think that greed and desire for collection comes from?
So, as an ideology, greed ultimately comes from necessity for survival, I think. Like, if you really want to break it down to the most basic, like, analogy, it would be like the squirrel who hoards his nuts.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Why does the squirrel not take one nut, hide it away, and then know fully well, okay, that's enough to get me through a week.
Yeah.
When the end of the week is over, I'll go get another one. No, he'll go and he'll hoard like 500,000 nuts
Right.
all over the place and forget half of them so that they got enough to make it through the winter.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why is that? Why is that mindset present in like lower order thinking animals? It must be to a degree like a survival instinct.
Sure.
It must be.
Yep.
So even just thinking off of that kind of angle, I don't know how we pivot from a capitalistic society where people are only ultimately motivated to go out and better themselves in order to make enough money to satisfy their needs. And it's a terrible, terrible shadow to cast on the whole human race, really.
But in general, if
there's
a lot of people that aren't, but
yeah, true. And the big problem I always had with money in particular is that money is just a social construct. It is. And that's the first argument you get from anyone who's of a socialistic mindset or a communistic mindset is they'll say money is a social construct.
Yep.
Yes, it is. But it's also the only way that we could kind of figure out a universal currency other than just resorting to the barter system, which only works if you have something that I want as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
It's ingenious in a way because we socially programmed the whole race of people to unanimously want something so that our system would function.
Yeah.
It's ingenious in a way. You might not like the system, but you can sort of admire it for how it came to be, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how we transfer and how we get to where you want to be. I agree. I think that if someday we could get there, yeah, sure, it would probably be better for everyone. There's no reason in the world why someone should starve to death because they do not have enough of something that is make-believe.
Right, exactly, yeah.
That is ridiculous. Make no wonder the fucking aliens have not stopped here and they've just passed on. It's stupid. However, for my like personal day-to-day life, I can't think of a solution that's better to how to make that work. Because every time that someone spouts Marxist ideology to me or something like that, all I hear is, yep, sounds good, but we've tried this dozens of times around the world, and they always have the same end result. They always have the same like dictatorial kind of structures that develop in these totalitarian regimes, because ultimately at the end of the day, there's something like survival-wise inside each and every person that if we can't change that, these regimes are always going to resort to these dictatorships.
Sure.
Right? So the real question to me is not how do you gravitate from one economic system to another. That's not where I think how you solve this problem. How you solve the problem in my mind is how do you change what people want? And to me, I don't know if you can. So if you can't, the way that things are right now, I think might not be perfect, but it's kind of like democracy. It's the best possible way to conduct yourself that we know of. Now, if you could prove to me, or if you have some suggestions on how we get from A to B, yeah, like 100%, I'm willing to have my mind changed all the time. I've just heard so many arguments in this fashion that just don't quite make sense.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And to the argument of, we've tried it before and it always turns out to be dictatorship. Those systems are still built on an idea of scarcity.
Okay.
When it comes down to it.
So just so we're on the same page, can you really outline what you mean when you say scarcity for me?
The fact that there's not enough.
Okay, so scarcity of resources or scarcity of
energy, scarcity of resources, scarcity of our fundamental needs.
Of goods.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So we could, reallocate all the resources we are using to build skyscrapers and house everybody in the world. We could reallocate all the resources we are using to grow food for animals to fatten them up and feed everybody in the world. We could reallocate all the resources we're using to burn fossil fuels and instead invest in solar, wind, and geothermal and tidal and give everybody enough energy. Like there's no actual scarcity there. So that survival mechanism that is ingrained in us, that's there. But the way we overcome that is by knowing that it's not necessary anymore. It's not necessary to hoard anymore. If the squirrel knew that there was an unlimited resource of nuts all around him all the time, he wouldn't hoard. And that's where we are. There is enough for all of us all around us all the time, but there are a few select people that have worked for decades, if not hundreds of years, to allocate it towards their families to take care of their loved ones. And I'm not judging anyone. I probably would do the same if I was in that fear mindset still. You know, I'd be like, I want to take care of my mom. I want to take care of my sister. I want to take care of all these people. So I'm going to make enough money, and I don't care who else is within lack because I need to feed my family.
Yeah, the will to provide. Right?
Exactly, right?
Okay.
And I think that's ingrained in us as well. And I'm not saying it isn't necessary, but at this point where we actually can be aware that there is enough to go around, that would change everything. Because the only reason why we gravitate towards dictatorships in those situations is because we're like, okay, we're going to give everyone the same amount, but we still, like the people in the dictators, like, well, we only have this much, so we got to ration you guys. We can only give you this much, and we can only give you that much. It's equal, but it's the same amount. Now, that doesn't work when you're based on scarcity, but we have the technology to grow food all over the world. We could do like vertical farming and stuff like that. We could have enough food for everyone overnight if we truly wanted to. We could have the energy systems in place to heat everyone's house overnight if we truly wanted to. Now, I don't know if it would actually be overnight, but you know what I mean.
I hear what you're saying.
Okay. But that's the main idea that keeps us going back to those kinds of systems, is the fact that there's not enough to go around. But that's inherently untrue. Like when you actually look at it, you know, it's not the actual amount of resources that is the issue. The earth provides more than enough than we need to take care of everybody on it. But like I said, some people have hoarded it all for themselves so they can take care of themselves and their loved ones and prosper in their way, and they're willing to sacrifice the lives of others to put themselves in that position. So it's the only thing we really need to do is understand that that's untrue.